Welcome, world, to the world of African biographies. On this channel, we'll discuss, get to know, and learn more about African leaders, experts in sport, icons in music, scholars, politicians, and sportsmen. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share. Now, let's get to know today's legend. Oliver Tambo Bambe Sandla Sam. I think this is like my favorite biography that I have ever done. I don't remember getting this excited to do someone's biography. Like, I am not making this up. Like, I'm genuinely excited to do Tatu Oliver Tambo's biography, or what I'm calling Oliver Tambo's biography. Like, what an interesting human being, an interesting character. Like, I am just in awe of the type of man that he was and the strategies he had to dissolve and disempower apartheid, and the fact that he stood akagunqa wathi 1980s, what the 80s is gonna be the decade for liberation. And indeed, it was a decade for liberation. I am telling you, my goodness. Now we're gonna get to on times where he was assaulted by policemen multiple times, and actually he was actually assaulted by the police before his wedding day because he did not have a pass. Now, if you don't know what a pass is, a pass, it was uh, that booklet. I think it was green even at the time. It's like your ID, and you were not allowed to be in certain places as a black person, and you needed your pass, that little document to say you are supposed to be here because of this and this and this, because of white minority rulership. Oh my goodness. And that is actually very sad. Very sad. But at the beginning, now we know Oliver Tambo as, the liberator, the man that fought the struggle. Okay, we know him as to be a diplomat. I mean, I did a biography of Thabo Mbeki, and Thabo Mbeki, he is known to be the diplomat, but Oliver Tambo, I believe he's the diplomat because actually he mentored Thabo Mbeki. Thabo Mbeki was working with him when he was in Europe. So we'll get to that. But I want to say that before black people became very violent towards the apartheid system, they actually decided not to be violent. But after some time of enduring violence, when they were not even violence towards the white minority in South Africa, they were met with so much violence. And he said, after some time of enduring violence, as a human being, you actually want to fight for yourself. And I was so impressed by his diplomacy. I was so impressed by his patience when talking to journalists. Like, some of the questions that were being asked there, they were just ridiculous. Like they just required your common sense. But he was very patient. Like, I feel like I would have been very emotional because it's like the apartheid system was treating black people as subhumans. I would say even worse than animals. And people were like, so why do you think you deserve to be treated well? I mean, ma'am, what do you mean? Anyways, so he said that it was very difficult not to be violent. He didn't fear for his life, and I was very surprised. But at the same time, I was not shocked. He said, dealing with the apartheid system, he kind of expects any time for people to just, unalive him. Um, he doesn't fear for his life. He expects to be killed by the regime or its agent. Um, when he would leave his house, his son, he would leave the house, and his son would say, give them hell, dad. And then after some time, He said, "What do you mean?" And then he said, "Kill those bastards." And then Oliver responded, "That's not what we're about. We're killing the system and not the people." And that's the type of man Oliver Tambo was. And I am so, 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 so happy to know such a man. Now, let's get to know him even deeper. Oliver Tambo was born on October 27, 1917, in the village of Kantila, Bizana, in the Mpondoland region of the Eastern Cape. His father, Mzimeni Tambo, was a farmer, an assistant salesperson at a local trading store, and his mother, Julia, was a devout Christian. Oliver was christened after Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany as a way for his father to show opposition to British colonization. Growing up, Oliver was given the task of heading his father's cattle, where he learned to hunt, to stick fight, and model animals from clay. He started school at the age of 6 and was given the school name Oliver by his teacher. He attended the Ludeke Methodist School and later the Anglican Holy Cross Missionary School at Flagstaff, where he excelled academically. Oliver's love for education was sparked when he met a lad from another school who was part of the debating society. He became motivated to learn and eventually attended St. Peter's Secondary School in Johannesburg, where he became a good cricketer, football player, and athlete. Tambo graduated high school in 1938 as one of the top students. After this, Tambo was admitted to the University of Fort Hare, but in 1940, he, along with several others, including Nelson Mandela, was expelled for participating in a student strike. In 1942, Tambo returned to his former high school in Johannesburg to teach science and mathematics. Now, in the Youth League, in 1944, along with Nelson Mandela and Walter Sisulu, Tambo founded the ANC Youth League, with Tambo becoming its first national secretary and a member of National Executive. In 1948, the Youth League proposed a change in the statistics of the anti-apartheid movement. Previously, the ANC had sought to further its cause by action, just as petitions and demonstrations. The Youth League felt these actions were insufficient to achieve the group's goal and proposed their own program of action. This program advocated tactics. Okay, this program advocated tactics such as boycotts, civil disobedience, strikes, and non collaborations. In 1955, Tambo became Secretary General of the ANC after Sisulu was banned by the South African government under the Suppression of Communism Act. In 1958, he became Deputy President of the ANC and in 1959 was served with a 5-year banning order by the government. In exile to London, in response, Tambo was sent abroad by the ANC to mobilize opposition to apartheid on the 21st March 1960. He settled with his wife in Muswell Hill, North London, where he lived until 1990. His exile took a toll on him, not seeing his wife and 3 children, but his wife Adelaide supported the ANC at home by taking the ANC members arriving from the UK. In 1967, Tambo became acting president of the ANC following the death of Chief Albert Luthuli. He sought to keep the ANC together even after he was exiled from South Africa. Due to his skillful lobbying, he was able to attract talented South African exiles, one of them being Thabo Mbeki. On the 3rd December 1979 in Lusaka, Zambia, Tambo, as president, and Alfred Nzo, then Secretary General of the ANC, met Tim Duncan, Stephen Lee, and Alex Mobaris, ANC members, and escapees from incarceration at Philip Kgosi prison as political prisoners. Their presence was officially announced by the ANC in early January, and Tambo introduced them at a press conference on the 2nd of January 1980. On 30 December 1979 in Lusaka, Zambia, Tambo as president and Alfred Nzo, then Secretary General of the ANC, met Tim Jenkin, Stephen Lee, and Alex Mobaris, ANC members and escapees from incarceration at Philip Kgosi prison as political prisoners. Their presence was officially announced by the ANC in early January, and Tambo introduced them at a press conference on 2nd January 1980. Golira activity. Tambo was directly responsible for organizing active Golira units along with his comrades, among from where Nelson Mandela, Joe Slovo, and Walter Sisulu. Tambo directed and facilitated several attacks against the South African public. In an interview in 1985, Tambo was quoted as saying, "In the past, we were saying the ANC will not deliberately take innocent lives. But now, looking at what is happening in South Africa, it is difficult to say civilians are not going to die." The Post Apartheid Truth and Reconciliation Commission, TRC, identified Tambo as the person who gave final approval in between 1978 and 1979 for the 20 May 1983 Church Street bombing, oh, which resulted in the death of 19 people and 217 people. The attack was orchestrated by a Special Operations Unit of the ANC's Umkhonto weSizwe, MK, commanded by Abu, ba- Abu Baker Ismail. Such units had been authorized by Tambo as president of the ANC in 1979. At the time of the attack, they reported to Joe Slovo as chief of staff. The ANC submissions said that the bombing was in response to a South African cross-border raid into Lesotho in December 1982, which killed 42 ANC supporters and civilians, and the assassination of Ruth First, an ANC activist and wife of Joe Slovo, in Maputo, Mozambique. It claimed that 11 of the casualties were SADF personnel and hence a military target. The legal representative of some of the victims argued that they were administrative staff, including telephonics and typists. They could not be considered a legitimate military target. 10K operatives, including Ismail, applied for amnesty for this and other bombings. The applications were opposed on various grounds, including that it was a terrorist attack disproportionate to the political motive. The TRC found that the number of civilians versus military personnel killed was unclear. South African police statistics indicated that 7 members of the SADF were killed. The commission found that at least 84 of the injuries were SADF members or employees. Amnesty was granted by the TRC.
In 1985, he was re-elected president of the ANC. In October of the year, Tambo gave an important interview to the editor of the Cape Times newspaper, Tony Head, in which he outlined the ANC's position and vision for a future non-racial South Africa. The interview was important for helping to create the political conditions for the South African government to later openly enter talks with the ANC, thereby resulting in the CODESA negotiations that will start upon his return to South Africa. His return to South Africa on the 13th December 1990, after over 30 years in exile, he was able to return to South Africa because of the legalization of the ANC. When he returned after his time in exile, he received much support. And like there were people, like multitude of people in the airport just waiting for his arrival. And if you live in Africa, when you come home, people are by the airport like multitudes. Some of that support even came from old rivals. However, because of his stroke in 1989, it was harder for him to fulfill his duties as president of the ANC. So in 1991, at the ANC's 48th National Conference, Nelson Mandela took over as president of the ANC. When he stepped down as president, however, the Congress created a special position for him as the national chairperson. After suffering complications following a stroke, Tambo died on the 24th April 1993 at the age of 75. His death came 14 days after Chris Hani's assassination and 1 year before the 1994 general election in which Nelson Mandela became president. Mandela, Thabo Mbeki, Walter Sisulu, and other prominent politicians attended the funeral. Tambo was buried in Benoni, Gauteng. International relationships. The strong fight against apartheid brought Tambo to form a series of intense international relationships. In 1977, Tambo signed the first solidarity agreement between the ANC and a municipality. The Italian town of Reggio Emilia was the first city in the world to sign such a pact of solidarity. This was the beginning of a long understanding which brought Italy to put an effort into concrete actions to support the right of South African people's self-determination. One of these actions was the organization of solidarity trips. The first one, called Amanda, departed from Gavona in 1980. It was Tambo himself who asked Reggio Emilia to mint Isitwalendwe medals, the greatest of the ANC honors. In 2004, he was voted number 31 in the SABC3's Greatest South Africans. He deserved number one. Oh, he's like one of the greatest. Scoring lower than HF Verwoerd before the SABC decided to cancel the final rounds of voting. The decision to cancel the results was largely informed by the fact that the majority of Black South Africans did not participate in the voting, as SABC3 caters predominantly to English speakers. In late 2005, ANC politicians announced plans to rename Johannesburg International Airport after him. Then President Thabo Mbeki at this time did not side with the idea, and there was a behind-closed-door meeting deliberating on this. Votes were in favor of the idea and against Mbeki, and the proposal was accepted, and the renaming ceremony occurred on 27 October 2006. The ANC-dominated government had previously renamed Jan Smuts Airport as Johannesburg International Airport in 1994 on the grounds that South African airports should not be named after political figures. There is a sculpture of Tambo at the Albert Road Recreation Ground, Muswell Hill, close to his London home. In February 2021, Haringey Council renamed the park as the O.R. Tambo Recreation Ground. In June 2013, the city of Reggio Emilia in Italy celebrated Tambo with the creation of a park dedicated to the President of the African National Congress. His house at 51 Alexandra Park Road, Muswell Hill, London, was purchased by the South African government in 2010 as a historic monument and now bears a plaque. That's amazing. Oh, Tambo's grave was declared a National Heritage Site when he died, but lost this status when his wife, Adeline Tambo, died and was buried alongside him. However, their grave was redeclared a National Heritage Site in October 2012. The ANC Safe House in Lusaka, Zambia, where Tambo spent much of his time in exile, when not in London, was declared a national monument by the Zambian government in 2017 and open to the public as Oliver Tambo Heritage House. It was opened by South African President Jacob Zuma, Zambian President Edgar Lungu, and former Zambian President Kenneth Kaunda. To conclude the sanitary celebrations of the birth of Tambo, a commemoration was held at Regina Mundi Catholic Church in Moroka, Soweto on 27 October 2017. This same event marked also the centenary of the sinking of the troops ship SS Mendi. The event was curated by the Ambassador Lindiwe Mabuza and for Lawrence Mduduzi Ndlovu, together with Tambo Mbeki Foundation and the Oliver and Adeline Tambo Foundation. Now there are books on Tambo. You can just go find them online. Now, many of you know, or if you don't know, that people back in the day when they had English names, it was not their doing. It was because they had to like enroll in school or find work, because at that time the white minority didn't want to pronounce some of their names, so they gave them English names. So when Tambo was 6, his father informed him that he was to start school, which was about a kilometer from his home. After enrolling, his teacher informed him that he had to have a school name, and therefore his father gave him the name Oliver. Tambo passed Sub A, after which he attended another school at Mbobeni. Here he was first introduced to formal music, which became a lifelong activity and a hobby. His father, intent on providing his children with a good education, moved them to the Ludeke Methodist Church, some 16 kilometers away from the homestead. Occasionally, his father would lend Tambo his horse to travel to school. To overcome the inconvenience of traveling the long distance to school, his father got him a board with 3 families at different times, all of whom who lived near the school. And these people were like his relatives. Oliver's Tambo involvement with the African National Congress is a big part of his history. He co-founded the ANC Youth League in 1944 and later became the national secretary. His activism led to his banishment from Johannesburg in 1954, and he continued to play a key role in fighting against the apartheid. Which is, I feel like, I'm so glad that he was not arrested. He was not in Robben Island. I feel like his exile worked for the betterment of Black people, because how was he going to travel around the world, defending the ANC, talking about the work of the ANC? I mean, he was in the United States. Some people reject him, and the National Party's president back in the day, uh, used to like speak bad of the ANC, that the other countries, should not give them the time of the day because they were seen as like terrorists and, people that were like killing white people and Zulu people. Like, it was a lot. They smeared their name, but he was just there in defense. And I feel like his diplomacy was just a strategy, was a great strategy, to hit the white minority in South Africa where it hurt the most. And I remember him saying that, we are defeated, we don't have enough weapons to fight, we are helpless and we need your help. And it made me look at, white people differently, because with all these documentaries that I've done, I haven't seen like white people, like magnitude of white people like fighting against the apartheid era. But of course, it was white people outside of South Africa. It was white people in Europe. It was Asians, like Indians, and they came in multitudes and they were fighting. And I was like, it is truly not fair to be like, or painting white people with the same brush and to say they're the same, because they don't have the same mentality. And because of Tambo's actions, you could see like, oh, differentiate. Okay, no, man. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for white people who fought also, alongside black people, whether it was white people in America, white people in London. We wouldn't be here because they also, paved the way so that we can have democracy. Oliver Tambo, now, when it comes to his relationship with his wife, he met his wife, Adelaide Frances Tambo, at a party in 1955. They married in 1956 and had two children, Dali and Dingy. Adelaide was a fellow activist and played a significant role in the apartheid movement. Their children was built on their relationship was built on mutual respect, trust, and a shared commitment to fighting for justice and equality. Oliver and Adelaide Tamble's relationship was incredibly strong. There was so much love between them, and you can see them and the respect. Like you could see that these women like sacrifice part of their marriage for their husband to just go fight in the struggle, but they were also like fighting and a shared vision for activism. Adelaide stood by Oliver throughout his exile, raising their children and supporting him from afar while he worked tirelessly for the ANC. Even after Oliver's stroke in 1989, Adelaide cared for him until his passing in 1993. Adelaide Tambo was an incredible woman in her own right. She was a teacher, activist, and politician who fought against apartheid and later became a member of the parliament in South Africa's first democratic government. She played a crucial role in the Women's Anti-Pass campaign and was a key figure in the Federation of South African Women. Now, when it comes to Tambo's likes, I found that Oliver Tambo loved playing cricket. He was a keen cricketer and even played for his school team at St. Peter's Secondary School in Johannesburg. He was also into football and athletics, but cricket seemed to be, one of his big passion. He even played cricket with Nelson Mandela, and they were both part of the St. Peter's Old Boys cricket team. Cricket was more than just a sport for Tambo, it was a way to connect with others and build relationships. Now, when it comes to his food, there was not much recorded, but because he's from the Eastern Cape, or he has roots in the Eastern Cape, it's likely that he enjoyed traditional Mpondo dishes like umphokozi, semp and beans, or ungqosho, a mix of maize and beans. South African staples like bobotyi and milipap might have been on the table too. Oliver Tambo was also known for his sharp style. I mean, he wore suits majority of the time, and I think it's because he was traveling a lot. He often wore tailored suit, looking quite dashing. As a young man, he rocked the whole intellectual activist, and he really, really, really did. Now, when it comes to his children, he had a son and a daughter. Udali Tambo is quite the go-getter. He's involved in various businesses and is also a vocal advocate for social justice and transformation in South Africa. Dingi Tambo has been involved in businesses and has spoken about the importance of family legacy and social responsibility. Now, when Thabo Mbeki speaks of the ANC, and when he was paying tribute to Oliver Tambo, he was saying that like ethics were very important, obviously, to Tambo, and they were more important to him than politics. He just joined the politics because he wanted to fight the struggle, and he said that the threat to the ANC now is its leaders, which I found to be true and sad, but also funny. Um, and the and PW Botha, PW Botha, which was the president, he was so adamant about keeping the apartheid era. Like, I just can't understand for the life of me why was he so adamant about fighting black people, about killing black people. And the sad part is that I found some also like black police, they were also beating their own. Like, what? And he was like, I'm going to keep order in South Africa. And I quote, no matter what it takes, he was just going to keep order. And what it takes was ending lives, which is why, like, black people were very tired. The regime must not have an opportunity to divide us. When Tambo heard that, they were starting to start negotiations even with Nelson Mandela, and he was like, the regime must not have an opportunity to divide us, because they wanted to meet with people individually. And he was like, no, that should not be the case, because then they will divide. When he heard that they were having meetings with people like Nelson Mandela, Mandela went to pay respect to the children after the mother died. When it comes to their relationship with Mandela, they were friends when they were very young. And when he came back, and because they were writing and writing and writing to the government, because they wanted them to release people in Robben Island, but they refused. But when they saw like their negotiations were very close, and they wanted the UN to co-sign them releasing, one by one, because that was a strategy to release the prisoners, like on Nelson Mandela Sisulu. And one by one, the leaders started to come back and started to come back. And when Nelson Mandela, when they were released, oh my God, the embrace, you know what I mean? Like, they embrace, like, like children. You could see that, oh my God, they missed each other, or they had like this deep respect for one another. And it was so incredible to watch. And people were saying, when they were like leaving the place where they were gathered, Nelson Mandela was like, okay, you go first. And Tambo was like, no, 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 you go first. And they did that for some time. And people were like, they had like a great, 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 great respect for one another. And some of the ways that Thabo Mbeki led the country, or how he is as a diplomat, I feel like it is introduced, or was very informed, or the word that I can use is very inspired by how Tambo was. And I can say that proudly that, I thank Utambo and his involvement. Also, Otambo is the only comrade in history to have so many songs made up about him. I mean, I was dancing, I was jiving, because what the work that he did, you know, going from place to place and just speaking on behalf of Black people, that was amazing. And that is it about Utambo and his amazing work. Like, we thank you, and may his soul rest in peace. Thank you for listening. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.